Hello, and we are live.
Morning.
Welcome to this first in a series of Climate Champion talks on hydrogen, hydrogen's surprising role in the future of energy. I'm Beth Evans, Global Director of News with S&P Global Platts, which provides insights and price assessments around hydrogen and many other commodities. Joining me today are Janice Lin, founder and CEO of the Green Hydrogen Coalition, Sebastian Schmidt, CEO of hydrogen electrolyzer maker Enapter, and someone who actually runs his entire house off of hydrogen. And I'm hoping he'll talk more about that with us today. And R. Rex Parris, mayor of Lancaster, California, which aspires to be the alternative energy capital of the world. Let's start with the basics. What is hydrogen? Sebastian, can you maybe tell us more? Where does hydrogen come from, and why do we keep hearing about different colors associated with it? What can you tell us?
Okay, hydrogen is actually part of the water, H2O for water. We have two atoms of hydrogen and one oxygen. And if you split it with electricity, called electrolyzers, we have these kind of two gases in separate form. And hydrogen is not only, let's say, part of everywhere, it's actually highly energy loaded, and this is actually what we can use. There's these kind of colors of hydrogen comes in is where the electricity comes, where it's built, and how it's produced. So we have gray hydrogen, which is done by mainly by steam reforming process, so made out of gas. There's blue hydrogen, for example, which is done in the same way, but the CO2 is captured. And actually, we want to talk today mainly about green hydrogen, which is done from renewables.
And how do you store hydrogen, Sebastian?
Well, as you know, that I built my home with hydrogen generation, and as it's in northern Thailand, it's already dark outside here. This light is coming from hydrogen, from fuel cells, actually. We store it in tanks, so it's in gaseous form, and we have 3 large tanks. Each is 1,000 liter, big, so around 2.50 meters high. And here we compress it with 35 bar and store it.
Great. Well, I think we'll get back to some of the technical pieces a little bit later in our conversation. Janice, let me ask you, what, other than Sebastian's house, what else can hydrogen be used for, and how does it help deal with the overall issues with climate change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, I'd love to see your house someday, Sebastian. It sounds very cool. Green hydrogen is, as Sebastian said, made from renewables, and there's many pathways in addition to electrolysis and splitting water. For example, you can make green hydrogen from organic waste, agricultural waste, biogas, and this little molecule is a super game changer. And, first of all, it can replace gray hydrogen. And one of the things that most people are not aware of is that hydrogen is a globally traded commodity. We use lots and lots of it, like 100 million metric tons around the world every year. Virtually all of it's made from fossil fuels, which is why we call it gray hydrogen, from natural gas. And if we can displace that with green hydrogen, and it's used in lots of different industrial applications, making ammonia, fertilizer, that has a tremendous decarbonization potential. And then this little molecule can also be used to displace fossil fuels in other applications. For example, it can be blended into the natural gas pipeline to displace carbon in the gas pipeline. It can be used as in lieu of natural gas for generating electricity, thermal generation, for heating. It can be used to displace liquid fuels, gasoline for cars and trucks, including diesel, bunker fuel for ships, and even aviation fuel for long-haul air transport. So in a nutshell, this powerful, really abundant little molecule, if it's green, can really help us decarbonize those hard to abate sectors, which we didn't think were even decarbonizable even, some years ago. So this is very hopeful.
Great, thanks, Janice. And Rex, can you tell us more about what's going on in Lancaster as far as hydrogen and alternative fuels? Why the shift to hydrogen?
Well, ultimately, we have the first all-electric bus transportation. We were the first city that required all new housing to be net zero, meaning it creates and stores its own energy. The list goes on and on. But ultimately, none of that was going to save the species. And the problem has always been storage. If you use batteries, the production of those batteries alone has a huge footprint. The disposal of those batteries has a huge footprint. The problem has been how we can create alternative energy, but how do you store it? And hydrogen was not an acceptable solution until recently, because to create the hydrogen, the footprint on the environment was greater than the savings. But now we can create it with electrolysis using solar panels so that there is no footprint. We have several other projects in the works that, because it's not easy to distribute hydrogen at the moment, because the government hasn't really put in the infrastructure necessary. We had to create our own infrastructure. We had to create our own ability to produce it, and that has resulted in some amazing things. We have one plant up and running now that Idealab out of Pasadena came up with, where you focus the rays of the sun with mirrors onto a container. You heat it up to 2,000 degrees, and you can split the water vapor into hydrogen and oxygen. And you produce it in sufficient quantities that it's commercially viable. We're in the process of getting ready to break ground on a project called the S2 project, which uses organic waste. And we put 6 truckloads of organic waste into the hopper, heated up to 4,000 degrees using plasma torches, and you split off the hydrogen, and you have carbon monoxide bricks that are left over that they use in agriculture. And has absolutely no footprint on the environment, and it runs itself once you start producing the hydrogen. The only thing you need to do is put in organic waste. The third thing, we have a composter. It's called a digester, and you put in the organic waste. Big long tube comes out with compost and methane that you then convert into hydrogen. So those are the 3 major projects we're doing now. We've signed an agreement with the Japanese government and Toshiba. They'll be coming in and they'll be making the fuel cells that we will literally attach to the building, and you could go off the grid. And you can do it for houses, hospitals. The first building that's going to do that is the City Hall, where we will produce our own hydrogen from our solar panels, store it. There's a battery component to it, and we'll also fuel the cars. All of the city fleet will become hydrogen powered. And I think we're the first building in the US that's doing that. We've signed an agreement where we will be signing an agreement with NAMI in Japan, where we'll be sister cities, with the idea that we will be the first cities totally powered by hydrogen, hopefully within the next 5 to 10 years. And the reason I say the next 5 to 10 years is because we are out of time. This planet is out of time. What we're attempting to do in Lancaster is create the model for what other cities can do so they can get there more rapidly. When we set out to do this, we were literally laughed at. I mean, laughed at, because there was all of the deniers and their arguments for it. Finally, I think anybody with an IQ greater than a gnat recognizes that this is dire, that we have to move quickly. And until hydrogen came along, there was really no solution. Now that it's here, and now that we can do it in commercially viable ways, we have a chance. The question is, do we take it?
Well, thanks for that. Wow, I don't know where to go after that. That's a great answer and amazing what your city's doing. I guess folks at this point are probably asking themselves, if hydrogen is so great, why don't we see it on every street corner and in all our cars? You know, what are the barriers to quickly scaling things up? And Janice, I wanted to turn to you. I know you're a proponent of green hydrogen in particular. Can you tell us what's keeping a lid on just the boosting production for green hydrogen?
Yeah, so we are at the forefront of the green hydrogen economy. I know we've been talking about the hydrogen economy for a very long time. And what's different today is that we know how to make it at scale. It's commercially viable. All those projects and those pathways that Mayor Parris talked about are technically very, very doable. The challenge is that you have a newcomer, and the newcomer, just by virtue of the fact that it's new and at much smaller scale, is going to be more expensive than the incumbent, than the status quo alternative. And that therein lies your chicken and egg problem. The new kid on the block is more expensive because it's not at the same scale as status quo incumbents. And because it's more expensive, it's hard to scale it. Because you don't have scale, we can't afford the necessary infrastructure to achieve low delivered cost. Because remember, it's one thing to know how to make it at scale and drive the cost down, but that molecule won't be much use, even if it's low cost, if you can't get it to the point of consumption. And the kind of infrastructure that we need is large-scale underground geologic storage. We need pipelines. All of these technologies exist today. They're commercially done right now for gray hydrogen. We just have to find a way to transform our infrastructure to encourage the green kind. And the very good news is we know that at scale, the green hydrogen will be more cost effective than its fossil fuel counterpart. It will be more cost effective than many types of liquid fuels. So, and I think Mayor Parris mentioned that earlier in our discussion, that once we hit that tipping point, history will take care of itself. And government and policymakers and regulators can play a very important outsized role in, taking that lid off, as you say, because what can dramatically accelerate this cost equation is by making sure we have the right market design that appropriately values the benefits. So, and I'll give you a great example. Hydrogen is a great way of storing vast amounts of very, very low cost renewable electricity, wind and solar, lowest cost of energy at the margin. Yet today, there's not really a way to get paid for that service. And that's just one example. Another example, we have many countries around the world are looking at using our gas pipeline as a storage and transport capability for green hydrogen. You can make green hydrogen anywhere you have an electric sector, an electric interconnection, and renewable electricity, but we don't have the pricing mechanisms to encourage that renewable electricity production, electrolytic production, and then injection into the gas pipeline. So there's a lot of market mechanisms that are missing today.
So to create that market mechanism, is it a question, Janice, of being sort of colorblind at this point in terms of hydrogen? Do you need to kind of start with the gray and the blue and then make your way, get the market going, and then make your way to green hydrogen? What do you think?
So there is a lot of infrastructure that can be shared. We have 1,600 miles of hydrogen pipeline in the United States today. I think the US has more hydrogen pipeline than any other country on the planet. That pipeline could be used for green hydrogen too. Generally, when we think about if the goal is having an impact in decarbonization, we need to support pathways that are where the net benefits and the carbon footprint is lower than the alternative. So there are ways to decarbonize gray hydrogen with carbon sequestration. From the Green Hydrogen Coalition's perspective, we need all of the above. As Rex said, time is of the essence. We have to go faster. So some amount of colorblindness would be helpful. It'll also be helpful not only in sharing the infrastructure and collectively going faster, but when you have alignment among core stakeholders against achieving a common goal, things are just a whole lot easier from a political and policy and regulatory standpoint.
Sebastian, what are your thoughts on this?
I strongly believe that we should not mix colors. We have already today enough gray hydrogen, so we don't need more gray hydrogen somewhere, and we should not promote it. It's about green hydrogen, and it means that we have to, with renewables, we have to produce hydrogen everywhere where we can. And this means in large-scale systems, we can produce it with electrolyzer or other means, or actually we can do it decentralized. So this is, let's say, more the topic where we are coming from, because we actually are building a modular electrolyzer you can build everywhere. So this is something what we can address with hydrogen is not only, let's say, big pipeline areas. So we also can go where today no pipeline exists. We have more than 1 billion people in our world which has no electricity. Correct is that solar is today the cheapest way to produce electricity, but unfortunately the sun is not shining every day and only during day and not in the night.
Now, one thing about electrolyzers, though, is I think at this point we don't have anyone in a sort of mass market, mass production role for making electrolyzers. Is that something that's also needed before we can really kick off green hydrogen?
Yeah, that's actually, so I can say it from European perspective. Germany and also the European Union and all these and several European nations, they have massively supported hydrogen electrolyzer facilities, and all are on the way to make it cheaper. So the target is what I will suggest. I believe that the target is €1.50 in reaching in 2024 from the more, let's say, aggressive companies, CAPEX for 1 kilogram hydrogen. And then actually it becomes interesting in many fields. And then a few years later, I believe until 2030, we will have around 50 cents per kilogram green hydrogen made by electrolyzers. And this is actually absolutely a game changer. And here we can reach our climate goals. We have to reduce carbon footprint. We have to do it fast, and we should not stop. We should make the prices cheap.
I guess one way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that in terms of promotion and encouraging market development, we absolutely need to promote green hydrogen. Gray hydrogen doesn't need any help. It's already a very mature industrial, globally traded commodity. It's not advancing the climate. But when it comes to green, it doesn't mean that we have to push down other forms of decarbonization. We need direct air capture. We need energy efficiency, demand response. All of these pathways to accelerate decarbonization should and must be on the table.
Now, to get them on the table, I guess it sounds like we need prices to come down for things, and we need the infrastructure. And you know, Rex, I was thinking about, you were saying that, you know, it was kind of, there's a private and public kind of partnership that goes on. I know the company I work for, S&P Global Ratings, actually said recently that widespread adoption of clean hydrogen hinges on supportive net zero policies. A lot of this is policy driven. What are your thoughts on that, Rex?
Absolutely. Look, we could solve this. We could. We have it within our grasp to literally save the species. and all it requires is leadership with courage. We have the natural gas pipelines. You run a thing called a pig through it that then coats it. One of the problems with hydrogen is it makes metal brittle, so you gotta insulate those pipes. But we're able to do that now. The problem with it is the business models, and the business models are for short-term profit as opposed to long-term. But all of these utilities, they're public utilities. They have a public monopoly. We could take it back tomorrow if they refuse to get on board and move as fast as they need to move. And the cost to the taxpayers, we haven't seen it. When these plants come into Lancaster, as soon as they shift to becoming a commercial plant, they give us 5%. We take 5%. And they get and they love it. I mean, there is no hesitation whatsoever when they reach out their hand and shake hands with me for that. That offsets any cost the city's going to make. Every time we have brought in some type of alternative energy program, the city's coffers have filled every single time. And the reason for that is the utilities overcharge to such an extreme amount that there really isn't a cost barrier to this. There is a political barrier. There is, if you would just pass a law that energy companies can't contribute to politicians, this thing would be solved in a year. Okay, maybe I'm stretching it a little bit, but that is the reality of this. In America, we've institutionalized corruption. We call it campaign contributions. And, I used to be a keynote speaker all over California. I've actually spoke all over the world on this. But all of a sudden, one day I'm flying in to give a speech, and they pulled me off the program. And they pulled me off the program because Sempra Energy demanded that I be taken off the program, and they are now sponsoring all these energy events. We have to recognize that we are in a race to save, literally, to save our grandchildren, your children. This thing is coming at us like a freight train, and we can no longer tolerate business as usual. When we initially started this 10 years ago, we thought it was going to cost us a fortune. We have made more money than you can possibly imagine. I honestly think that this city will double our expenditures without raising taxes within the next 4 or 5 years. And most of it is coming from energy. Just taking our streetlights back, we were able to totally put all LED lighting on every streetlight. We were able to use them as the power source for Wi-Fi, to put cameras wherever we wanted in the city, and we still save a fortune, because that's how much the utilities were charging us. They called it a maintenance fee. Seriously? You change the bulb every 3 or 4 years, and they were charging us, I think, $90. I think it was $90 a pole a year. It was ludicrous what they do. If we wake up soon enough and we recognize we have to change business models, we can absolutely deal with this problem, this climate extinction problem, and be a better society at the end of it. Have better facilities for the citizens, have to improve the welfare of the city in the process. This really is all good. We didn't know it was all good. We thought it was going to be a huge, huge consequence. But it turns out it's just business models. The biggest problem to making all housing net zero is that most housing is bought by investors and then rented out. Well, who pays the electric bill? Well, the tenant pays the electric bill. It's the business model that's the problem. It's not the technology. It's not even the will to fix it. It's just recognizing we got to do business differently. And if we did that, we wouldn't have $400 million people from Central America that are going to need to immigrate in the next 20 years. I mean, that's really what's driving most of these problems. COVID would not have happened but for climate extinction and driving the different wildlife into the urban areas. The consequences of us not acting are just too great. But we have to act today. The amount of carbon in the atmosphere right now, the last time it was at this level, the last time there were alligators in northern Canada. The only reason why they're not alligators in northern Canada today is the oceans haven't warmed. But once they warm, it will take 1,000 years to cool. The urgency of these just simply can't be overstated. We're a nation that spent $1 trillion in the Middle East for no reason that anybody can really understand. If we spent half of that addressing the extinction of our species, this thing would be solved 4 or 5 years from now, because we have the infrastructure in place. We have the pipelines in place, and we should give the utilities a choice. We're either going to take them back because they are a public utility, or you're going to get real busy fixing this. It's not hard. It just takes courage.
So are you saying that we have the infrastructure to go from basically 0 to 60, from straight to green hydrogen now? Because it certainly sounds like there is more infrastructure that is needed. There is a market that is needed to back up a green hydrogen sort of economy, right?
Of course, there's more infrastructure that's needed, but the basic fundamental framework for it is there. You just have to fix it. You gotta make it so those pipelines can carry hydrogen instead of natural gas. But there's a huge benefit for that, because the utilities have let those gas lines develop so many leaks that in some areas of the city it's dangerous to live. But if you convert them to hydrogen, you fix that problem, because it also seals all those leaks. Now, you do need to ramp up the production of the fuel cells, but we have the fuel cells now. The technology is there. When we first started down this path, we signed all these contracts for photovoltaic, solar panels. Converted the whole city, all the schools, all public buildings to solar power. And we signed these leases for 15 cents a kilowatt. We thought we were the smartest people alive. We drove the cost from about 21 cents to 15 cents. We now have our own community choice aggregate where we buy and sell the power, and we buy and sell that power all day long for 4 to 6 cents a kilowatt. That was the amount of profit that utilities were building into this. What we've learned, that it's not a technological problem now that hydrogen is there. Without hydrogen, we don't have enough to solve it. But with hydrogen, we do. Now that it's there, it's not a technological impediment. Now, in order to use the fuel cells in cars, we got to get gas stations to have hydrogen to be able to sell. So there's ways to do that. Most gas stations now want to sell alcohol. They want to sell beer and wine. Okay, you can do that in Lancaster, but you got to put in a hydrogen station first. And now we've got gas stations being converted to hydrogen stations, so that as soon as Toyota gets enough of these hydrogen-powered cars out there, and now other cars are developing this, we're ready. It'll be ready to happen. But you got to get creative, and you've got to make trades. Okay, you can sell beer and wine. As soon as I see the hydrogen part of the station. And I haven't run into any resistance.
And what does the roadmap look like? I know you guys have a lot of pilot projects. What's the roadmap for hydrogen for Lancaster for, say, the next 12 to 24 months?
Within 24 months, we will be producing enough hydrogen to satisfy all the city needs. The challenge is going to be can Toshiba produce the fuel cells fast enough? But the ability to just plug them in is already here. You know, we're getting ready to build a new hospital. I fully expect that to be hydrogen powered. Any buildings that the city is involved in creating, they will be hydrogen powered. And you know, it ironically, you know what the Toshiba calls these fuel cells for buildings? The Rex 2.
Wow, that's a compliment.
Well, they didn't do it deliberately. It was totally, you know, they've been calling it that for quite a while, but I thought it was ironic.
Well, thanks for that. And now I wanted to ask Sebastian, sticking with roadmaps, I know Enapter's got kind of an interesting build out plan. What does Enapter look like as far as next 12 to 24 months? What are your plans?
The next 12 months, we will still do the factory in Pisa. So we produce around up to 100 electrolyzer each month. And it's picking up. So we see demand coming from everywhere. So also by August this year, we will start our mass fabrication in Saarbeck, North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany. So the plan is to produce more than 10,000 electrolyzer starting beginning of 2023. So this is actually scaling, and it's all about cost. So we have to scale to get the cost down, and cost of electrolyzer means automatically cost of hydrogen. So as I said, €1.50 should be reached when our mass fabrication is ready, and we believe 50 cents is an ultimate goal for at least 2030 or earlier. So it's clear. So we are here all on the same page. We want to fight against climate change, and we have to reduce carbon footprint. So, and this works only if the prices goes down for everything. It's about electrolyzer, it's about tanks, it's about piping, it's about fuel cell, it's about software, which is actually handling these kind of let's say systems which are already differently sized wherever you put them.
Well, now there is a fair amount of I know announcements like Enapter's announcements out there. I actually took a look before we got on today, and I checked out the Platts Hydrogen Production Asset Database, which tracks a lot of these announcements for green hydrogen in particular. And it currently shows about 9 million tons of planned annual low carbon hydrogen production capacity that's planned. And that's up from announcements of just 2.5 million tons a year ago. So a big change. Janice, what green hydrogen projects are you keeping an eye on?
Yeah, it's very exciting what's happening around the world. And here in North America, my favorite big project is the conversion of Intermountain Power Project, which is a really hopeful story. This is a coal plant in central Utah that's getting converted to a hydrogen gas turbine. And this conversion will happen on the summer of 2025. It'll initially combust a blend of 70% natural gas and 30% green hydrogen. And that percentage of green hydrogen will be increased to 100% on or before 2035. So very quickly. To give you an idea of the scale of this project, it'll be an 840 megawatt combined cycle gas turbine. And when it combusts 100% green hydrogen, it'll require 277 million kilograms per year. So projects like IPP have the potential to rapidly scale production of green hydrogen, drive the costs down, and they're a really good head start in planning for the infrastructure that's needed to achieve that low delivered cost. The other unique feature about this project is it sits on top of the largest salt dome in the Western United States. So the build out of large underground geologic storage capacity for green hydrogen is about to commence.
Great, exciting times. Now, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I'm going to give you all the same question and then go around the virtual room. So the question is, can you share your vision of what a green, sustainable economy by 2050 looks like. Easy one, right? And what part hydrogen would play in that scenario. Who would like to go first? Don't everyone jump at it. Sebastian.
So, okay, in 2050, hydrogen is everywhere. There will not be, let's say, fossil fuel will not be anymore there in 2050. It's clear for me. It will be completely in large scale in pipelines, but for me, it will be also decentralized, and it will solve actually world problems. Decentralized means it will be cheap and everywhere. When I was a child, I was watching James Dean Giants. So I think that everyone with solar panels and electrolyzer can be his own oil baron of the future.
Great movie. Thank you for that plug. Janice, what do you think?
I love that vision. I will build on it. I agree. It's going to be green hydrogen everywhere. Countries will be vying for top exporter. We will have maritime transport of goods around the world will be moved with green hydrogen as its primary fuel. Bunker fuel, people won't even know what that is anymore. We will have long haul aviation flights. Think San Francisco to Singapore with aviation fuel made from green hydrogen. And it'll be a circular economy in that we will be able to use all of our waste streams to convert them into usable green hydrogen. We'll have less plastic in the ocean. We'll have less garbage. And we will have a more equitable and fair economy where the people who have suffered the most from fossil fuel industries and ports are now benefiting and enjoying the prosperity of producing all that green hydrogen, which is the new oil of our future.
Thank you very much. And Rex, I'm guessing you might have a vision for 2050.
Well, I just hope we make it to 2050.
Yes.
I mean,
Here.
It is that dire. But it's not going to be just hydrogen, but certainly hydrogen is going to be the backbone of it. We have to recognize that we are now able to have nuclear in ways that are so much safer, using molten salts instead of water as the coolant. It has to be broad spectrum, but I agree that hydrogen is going to be the backbone of all of this. And if you have any question about that, look what's happening in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is now becoming an exporter of hydrogen. Because it's very efficient to take methane and convert it to break off the hydrogen out of it. It also, what we're going to see with the S2 plants, and they're going to be all over the place, is it limits the need for landfills, and you can use plastic to create hydrogen with the S2 project. If we survive, you will see hydrogen everywhere. But you're also going to see nuclear, and you're going to see solar, and you're going to see wind. And, eventually the world wakes up to the fact that anything that's fossil fuels, we can't use anymore. The bathtub is full of water, and every drop that comes in is now overflowing. We've reached the point of not minimizing. We're at the point we have to stop, And the reason it's cost effective once you get the infrastructure in place, you know how deep you have to drill for oil? I mean, the cost of sending those drills that far into the earth is so humongous that it's no longer cost effective. The only reason we're holding on, it's not cost effective now if you took away the tax credits. The only reason we're holding on to it is because it's difficult for people who have become executives in positions of power to recognize they're now antiquated, and that the kids coming out of the universities that understand how to produce energy at less cost, that doesn't destroy the environment and isn't going to kill their children, that those are the people in demand. And these people my age have to step aside, and you better step aside now because we are simply out of time. Can you tell I'm a little bit touched by this? I got great. What can I say?
Well, thank you very much for that, Rex. And thank everyone for joining us today. Keep an eye out for the next Climate Champions Talk. And also check out the May 5th S&P Global Platts Virtual Hydrogen Markets Americas Conference. You can check that out on platts.com. Anyhow, until our next talk, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.